Yo, what is up everyone? This is Bleach Unbound, back at it again with the movie special of what if Deku had the negative speed force. Obviously, it's not going to be as OP. He'll have the blue lightning version, obviously blue lightning being the slowest in the negative speed force, while obviously blue lightning is the fastest in the normal speed force. As you can see, Future Flash in the comics having blue lightning, and he's shown to be exponentially stronger than everyone, or at least almost everyone in his verse. But pretty much, guys, without further ado, you'll be hearing a few references from a game. Obviously, I'm not going to say which game it is. I want you guys to figure it out, alright? This is the quiz of the day. If you manage to figure out the references I'm talking about, I'll pin your comment, alright? If you say, like, the game you're talking about or you influenced in this what if is this game, or insert game, or something like that. But without further ado, guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright boys, we start this what if the day Izuku Midoriya is born. Nothing unusual will happen here. Deku will be getting the artificial, not the artificial, sorry, I don't even know why I said artificial. We'll be getting the negative speed force a different way, which is why I brought up the whole reference thing. I wanted to try something outside the whole like Deku getting hit by lightning or some shit like that. Obviously, if Deku were to get hit by lightning, he would just have the normal speed force, or at least if I was doing something like that. Usually, Thon, obviously, if you watch, some people might cringe at me saying this, but if you watch the CW, Thon in the recent season had created the reverse flashpoint and had himself be hit by the lightning, which caused him to get the speed force. He didn't actually have this connection to the negative speed force because he never created it, because he didn't really see Barry as some sort of, he didn't admire him as much to want to replicate the system. Obviously, negative speed force is completely different from the normal speed force. Pretty much, guys, without tangent, let's just get into it. So we'll time skip to the day Deku is about 4 years old. Deku's growing accustomed to the new world he lives, as he's living with his father and his mother, and he's making new friends along the way, including Bakugo, which it would be similar to the canonical timeline. Now, what would occur is when Deku was about 4, he would still be told he was quirkless. And obviously, once, Sashi had taken him back home, he had, started talking to Izuku. He had then reached into his pocket and got a sort of a necklace, not a necklace, but like a ring strapped onto a, kind of like a wire in a sense, almost looking like a necklace. It is basically a necklace, as pretty much Hisashi would hand the ring over to Deku, as he would tell Deku to read the insignia. So Deku would be confused. Why would you give me this ring? It doesn't really have much value. Why, what made you give me the ring? As his father would then say, look at what it says. Deku would then look at the ring as he would start to slowly say it out loud. Sic Parvis Magna. What's that? Or what's this statement mean? I think, is it Latin or something? As Hisashi would answer, yeah, it is Latin. You want to know what it means? As Deku would then say, yeah, of course. Hisashi would then say, greatness from small beginnings. This is, as you can see, look inside the ring, the inside of the ring. As Deku would look inside, he would see a bunch of coordinates. As Hisashi would then say, if you wish to have a quirk, thrive your whole life to search for this. Never give up. If you truly make it there and find that, you will be able to have yourself a quirk, and you would have truly deserved it, not given to you by some birthright or anomaly. You would have truly earned it. As Deku, he would look down at the ring, he would start to smile a little bit. He'd realize this was the start of his journey, as is gonna need all the help he can get. As Hisashi would then tell Deku, get to bed or something like that. Just something like saying, hey, bye bye, or some shit like that. Obviously, Hisashi would go out and get some milk, and he would never return. Obviously, he would take that job in whatever country. I forgot what country it was, but I don't even think it's mentioned. Probably something I saw in the fanfic, but pretty much, like I said, Hisashi would go get the milk, and Deku would be a fatherless child. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously that would be true, but Deku would grow up right around, let's say he's 8. Deku's 8 years old. He had woken up to get up for school, and during this time he had thrived. He had even done training, like strength training, running, exercise, just basic exercises to get stronger. He wanted to find this treasure. And he did not always train in the physical aspect, but also in the mental aspect. He had to be strong enough in his mind to find this treasure, this lost quirk, something that could give him power. So he had grown up. So one day, he and this mysterious girl were talking, as this girl would be none other than Toga. Obviously, I cringed there for a second, be like, Toga, why that? Like, out of all the people, why Toga? Think about it. If you really think about it, Toga has a similar comparison to another character who is a reference to that, what I was talking about earlier in the intro. I'm not really going to give it away, but I was thinking about it, I was playing around with it in my head, and it sounded right. I can definitely make it work. So basically, this is all before Toga becomes a villain and shit. And obviously, there's still gonna be villains. She's gonna be a villain, and Deku's just gonna tag along. So Deku would ask Toga. He would see that she was quite misguided. Obviously, she was obsessed with the knife of hers, and she was obsessed with blood. Obviously, Deku was kind of a little put off by this, but he realized Toga is simply lost, and if he had simply gave her a goal, she would probably change in a dramatic way. So Deku would tell Toga that there was this lost quirk, or lost power, sentient power, that was lost for thousands of years, and he needs her help to find it. Obviously, Toga would be completely down. Her and Deku had been friends for years. I don't even think I used grammar. You're supposed to say Deku and her, not her and Deku. Never mind. But pretty much, Deku and her had been friends for years, and now, seeing this opportunity, she wouldn't really refuse. So obviously, Deku would then show her the coordinates, as she would then put them on the GPS. I know that kind of sounds basic, and Deku was like, why didn't I think of that? It seems like Deku had always been trying, or how do I say this? The reason why maybe Deku didn't come up with this is simply because he thinks it was so hard. He was thinking about this too hard when there was a simple way. But I'm just kidding, there was no GPS. But Toga would then get out an invention that pretty much once you put down the coordinates, it would find out the location. And once they would put down the coordinates, it would be none other than Panama. Obviously, not exactly Panama, but there was an island off the coast of Panama where the coordinates led to. As Deku, he started pointing at it, as he would make sure the coordinates are right, as he would point at it saying, this one's it, we need to find it. As obviously this would start their journey of, growing stronger, smarter, and just becoming older, obviously in age, as now we'll do a time skip for about 6 years. It had been 6 years since Deku and Toga had been, started their project of finding this lost sentient power, and now they were finally ready. They had 10 months of training, as him and Toga were gonna leave school and go out to find it. Obviously, Deku's mom was just not gonna fuck with that, so they were gonna have to dip, go missing and shit, go rogue, some type of thing like that, as Deku was doing odd jobs since he was about 10 years old. Even though it wasn't legal age, it's not the same legal system as it was in America. There was more leniency, not leniency, but there was more overlooking on stuff like underage working. Deku has been saving up money for things like a boat, car, and other like kind of like a rope. Whenever he was on the island, he needs to get to parts of the terrain, which was difficult without that, and just any climbing gear like that. So pretty much he had been preparing himself. He had truly wanted to work hard for this goal, and obviously the bullying with like Bakugo trying to, I guess, stop Deku from doing his goal. Not stop, but obviously just like bully him in a sense. And obviously Deku, the reason why I didn't go over is since Deku is clearly unaffected, has no effect over him. You know, he just truly doesn't care. But pretty much what would happen is today was the day. These pretty much where the teacher goes around passing the papers of pretty much job applications they could fill out for what they were gonna do after high school, or sorry, during high school. So the teacher would go up to the desk about to like pass out the papers when he would suddenly throw them up. Everyone was kind of confused for a second before the teacher would announce that, "I know you all want to be heroes." Obviously, everyone suddenly get excited and start flexing the quirks, other than obviously Toga, Deku, and Bakugo. Deku not really having one to flex, and he had no reason. He really didn't want to be a hero. He had seen the way the kids were brainwashed and manipulated to ostracize people who didn't have the same characteristics as them. He had read a book by Friedrich Nietzsche. He had read about a certain story, thus spoke Zarathustra, and he had admired the perspective of Zarathustra, who seen the way the people were, how they would just take or accept the average, something that was just not the top, how they would just settle for what they could barely have. And he truly didn't like it. He didn't like how they didn't want to strive to reach the top and excel above everyone else, which Deku wants to be. This being the characteristics of the Ubermensch. Obviously, this translating to Superman, or the Overman, whatever you want to see it as. As Deku had become intrigued with this characteristics in a sense, as he wants to adopt that into his idealism. Obviously, I got a little too philosophical there, so forgive me if you don't understand what I mean. But if you wish, if you're confused, just, I guess, ask me. I'll try my best to answer. But pretty much Deku had seen the way these kids had just pretty much casually flexed their quirks that could obviously do nothing, but then there was quirks that could kill people, as he would take a quick glance at Bakugo. And yet, for some reason, he could see the way Bakugo rules. It was a sort of like a oppressive tactic. I guess impose your power on everyone else and they shall fear you, no matter what. As Deku can see the strategy in it, but there was a flaw in it. What if that one person wasn't like everyone else? What if that one person was just not like everyone else and surpassed him, that one person, not that Bakugo, in power? Then that tactic would be flawed. There's no actual perfect plan. Even his idealism of the Ubermensch had flaws. And obviously there was really very small flaws, only really being the last man, as we see, small tangent, as we see between Aizen and Urahara being the last man, and Aizen losing to Urahara. But it's a very rare occurrence. I'm gonna get back to the story before I go on any more tangents, but pretty much what would happen is after, everyone would start flexing the quirks, Bakugo would do his same introduction of saying, hey, you would be lucky to even be some sidekick to some busted D-lister, some shit like that, He was very arrogant, and he wanted to show that to everyone. As after this, Bakugo would be told by the teacher, to settle down, as he would then, tell everyone that, after the bell would ring, that they were all free to go, and he would tell them to enjoy their summer break. Now, Deku and Toga would be walking to their house to get their stuff to leave, Obviously, Toga would just be like looking at her knife and wondering what it would look like if it was covered in blood. Obviously, just doing what any bloodthirsty possible villain would do, you know. So, but Deku and Toga would get to Deku's house as they would start to pick up their stuff to then leave. Now, once they would head over to like the kind of like the docks, where all the boats are shipped off, and they had gotten a manifesto for a ship being sailed near Panama, obviously the island. They would pass Panama, as obviously Deku and Toga would sneak in with relative ease, as pretty much Toga had gave Deku a few tips and tricks on how to stay stealthy, which he would have adopted into his fighting style. Obviously, boys, this is just the intro, so it's gonna change drastically. So this is just Deku getting this power. So don't worry if you fear anything would change. But what would occur is they would head over to that island. Obviously, the ship would pass right over, and on many occasions they would be almost caught. But of course, with some sheer luck, they would succeed. Now, what would happen is Deku would take one of the ship's boats, like the kind of like a dinghy. I believe that's what it's called. It's like a small boat. It really only fits like 4 people, but they would get on it, as they would just like throw it overboard, as they would then jump into the boat as they would drive off onto the island. Now, once they would get there, they would walk through the forest until they would hear some ruffling in the leaves as they would get into hide, as suddenly they would see a bunch of villains, it seems. They would have insignia for the League of Villains, and obviously the Overhaul's gang, the Yakuza. As Deku was confused, what was the Yakuza doing so far out of its jurisdiction? This was irregular. Had they came across one of the coordinates as well? Deku was kind of confused. He had only been given this by Hasashi, as Deku would then pretty much make a signal as him and Toga would get behind the 2 guards, as they would snap their necks, or at least like put them in a chokehold and pretty much stop their breathing, as they would have eliminated them. Now, after Deku and Toga were to take out the 2 guards, they would have reached into their pockets and took a map of the island. Turns out the villains were more prepared than them, as they had the doctor on their side, the same doctor that stole Izuku's quirk and cannon. So Deku and Toga would keep roaming the island until they would get to a main temple. Once they would get there, they'd see a flame, not even a flame, but it was sort of like a flame, but instead of fire, there was lightning. And the thing is, it was switching. It was almost like going from blue to almost dark red, and it was confusing. As Deku would walk up to the lightning, as he'd start to feel the power from it, as he'd realize he had finally found it. As Deku would reach down, the power would suddenly wrap around his body, as he would then fall over, as he would be knocked out by the power, or the sudden infusion of the power going into his body. Deku would then wake up suddenly in this weird, it was in the Speed Force, pretty much. As you know, when Barry runs to the Speed Force, it looks like it's like a storm area. As Deku would be walking around, he was confused where he was. He was just in the temple. What happened? As he would look around, he would see a house in the distance. He would walk into that house, as once he would get in, he would then see a figure. This figure had no face. It was just lightning based. As Deku would question, "Who are you?" As the figure would then say, "I'm the negative Speed Force." Obviously, I know this didn't actually happen, but since the Speed Force has sentient beings, obviously I know the Speed Force and the negative Speed Force are completely different things, but I feel like the negative Speed Force should also have sentient beings, or at least possible sentient beings who taught these speedsters who use the negative Speed Force. That's a lot. That might be a tongue twister. But the figure would then tell Deku that he is now accessing or in that sentient power, which is called the negative speed force. Deku would question him, saying, "Negative speed force? What is this sentient power?" As the man would respond, saying it uses all your negative emotions and obviously gives you speed. Obviously, you can use this without your said negative emotions, but it becomes weaker. So, as the sentient would start to walk up to Deku, he would question Deku, as he would then say, "Are you ready to use all of your negative and villainous emotions to transfer that into your power?" As Deku would then think about this, he can now possibly become the strongest person in all of My Hero. So no, I was about to My Hero. What the fuck am I saying? The strongest person in the whole planet, and possibly take the planet. He'd finally be like the Ubermensch he truly desires to be. So he would accept this, but he would ask him, how does power work? As the sentient being would explain that power in a time doesn't flow here, or at least it doesn't, as long as he stays here, barely any time flows outside, so he has enough time to explain everything to Deku. He would start to explain every possible ability he can use with the speed force, but he would tell Deku that he would have the weakest lightning, which would then be blue. It wouldn't be the same lightning as Ebar Thon. As Deku would then say, "Will I be facing these speedsters, by the way? If you don't mind me asking." As the sentient being would say, "Of course not." Then Deku would respond, "Then it is no matter of me who is faster than me if they cannot reach here. I can accomplish my goal with your power at least." As the being would then tap his forehead, saying, "Go ahead, you earned it." As Deku would suddenly wake up, his body had been coursing with lightning, as his eyes would glow blue, as his body would radiate blue and dark green, almost like dark green lightning. As his hair would start to float up, as he would look down, he was seeing the power flowing through his body, as he'd suddenly hear clapping in the distance. He'd look over as he would see a man with a weird, how do I say this? It's like it's a machine that helps you breathe. I can't actually remember what it's called. A rebreather? I think, no, not a rebreather. I can't remember. But he would see pretty much All For One. As basically All For One would congratulate Deku, as Deku would say, "Who are you? And how did he know about the coordinates? Only my father gave me that." As All For One would start to transform back into Hasashi, as he would then get his own copy of the ring, as he would then say, "You're right, only I know." As Deku would kind of be surprised, like, what the fuck? Like, how was this possible? As Deku would then say, "So you're the leader of the underworld?" As Deku would then say, ask him this, as All For One would respond, "But of course I am. And now you have became the host of this sentient being. Now I want you to succeed me and possibly rule better than I did. Obviously, I have a new vessel. He is growing up and he could possibly be your new ally. So just, be patient with him." As Deku would then say, "Who is this person you speak of?" As All For One would then respond, "His name is Tenko Shimura, or otherly known as Shigaraki." As Deku would then say, "Oh, so he's the one who's gonna use this power of yours?" As All For One would then say, "Something like that. But let's go. We shall go back to my base. I can see you had been working for years. You should deserve a proper rest." As obviously this would lead to Deku and Toga pretty much joining the League of Villains. Now, once they would get to the base, like the bar, Deku would then be placed down in a bed as he'd rest for the night. The next morning, Deku would get up as he would head over to a bar where he'd see this weird guy with a helmet and mist covering his face, this being Kurogiri. As Deku would question him, "Who are you?" As Kurogiri then say, "My name is Kurogiri. From now on, I will be your helper and assistant, and I am as well assistant to that of Shigaraki, which you heard of at least." as Deku would then see that, Kurogiri is shining a cup, as Deku would then say, "If you're my assistant, could I possibly request a drink from you? Any drink you wish of, at least." As Kurogiri would nod his head as he would start making Deku a drink. He would then put a few ice cubes and squeeze a lemon on it as he would hand the cup to Deku. Deku would drink the cup as he would congratulate Kurogiri on his style, as he would then say, "I really like this, hopefully we can become friends later on." But who is this Shigaraki you speak of? Actually, never mind. Who are the members here? As Kurogiri would then say, well, you have Toga, who had recently joined, which is your friend. Then there is Dabi, who is usually a villain who uses blue flames, but of course it kind of cremates his skin. Then there is Twice, who makes clones of himself, but there was a fear that the clones might start a coup against him. Then there is Muscular, who pretty much reinforces his skin with an augmentation quirk, as Deku would start seeing each quirk, and for some reason something would click in his mind. He would realize every weakness and strength to their abilities, or at least the abilities that Kurogiri is describing. Due to the negative speed force, his brain runs faster, possibly even faster than any human on Earth, as Deku would be surprised at this sudden intelligence. He was smarter before the negative speed force had became his power source, but now he was incredibly stronger, probably on par with Ebart's intelligence, maybe even smarter, as Deku would start to hear every villain that was in the League of Villains until it came up to Shigaraki. Shigaraki had a quirk which was called Decay. Whenever he had placed 5 fingers on an object or person, it would decay. And obviously Kurogiri would say that it wasn't really at its height in power, so it could become powerful from there. As Deku would comment and would say, hey, I see why All For One chose Shigaraki to be his successor, at least for his power. As Deku would be more successful for his title and his physical power, but power and influential power. Shigaraki simply gained power of All For One. As Deku would then be requested as the TV would turn on. Obviously, All For One would be there as he would request Deku to meet him in the room, or his room, as Kurogiri would open him a portal as Deku would walk in. Deku would then be met by none other than All For One, as All For One would tell Deku that he has about 10 months to train for UA. As Deku would then say, become a hero? That's a bit disgusting. As All For One would then say, it's not because I want you to be a hero, it's because I want you to get some information. You'll be going there along with another individual. His name is Aoyama. You and him will be getting information from UA, weaknesses, strengths of every student and every pro hero that you have met there. As Deku would nod his head, as he would then say, so how do I design my suit? All For One would then respond, you do whatever you need, just go to Dr. Ujiko, I believe his name is. And Deku would nod his head. He'd go over to the doctor, as the doctor would start doing a physical analysis on him, as he'd come up with the perfect suit. He had taken design suits from multiple villains and anti-heroes and stuff like that, and brought up the perfect suit, this being Manga Deku's suit. It had the same bunny ears and the same, gloves, the same scarves, the drip, okay, pretty much. And this time it'll look a little bit different since Deku would have like blue lightning radiating out of his body. But this means he'll be more creative and has more access to more abilities other than just the quirks he possesses. So, pretty much after Deku would then, let's do a time skip for about 10 months. Multiple things would happen to Deku. Deku would probably get with Toga in a sense, if you get my vibe. I'm not really that type of person, so I don't really go into details like that. But Deku would also learn how to get more access to the Speed Force. He would learn more abilities, like making objects out of lightning, running so fast he can throw lightning or catch lightning, or even run so fast he can make portals from different locations. Obviously, it would be too OP if I can make it so he can make a wormholes to different Earths or different timelines. I was just gonna have it sort of like a transportation ability, sort of like a better version of Kurogiri's portals. He can then pretty much infuse a part of his body, or with lightning, and enhance more of his attacks, or he can run a distance away and run back with more speed, creating a sonic punch at that point. Obviously a shockwave, like a huge shockwave of just sound would escape, and it's pretty powerful. And other add-ons like that, obviously this being high speed regeneration, which is yet again a good thing. But after the 10 months, Deku would then be in his not UA, but like a normal casual clothes, as he would then be seen going to UA. Pretty much he and Aoyama would be walking there, as Deku would then say, "Well, good luck, Aoyama. You do your own thing, and I shall do my own." As Deku would then go into UA, or at least the part where everyone's taking their test, as he would see a lady, or not a lady, it would be Ochako, who is falling over. Deku would then pretty much see someone else catch her, obviously just being some random person. Like, obviously, he needs to get to know everyone, so he'll be watching from afar, seeing how everyone reacts or acts, in a sense. As Deku would then walk in, he had seen potential in most of the students he had seen, like Bakugo, and he had passed this boy with half white and half red hair, being none other than Todoroki. So he had seen some powerful future heroes, in a sense. So once Deku would get in, he would sit down, and he'd be sitting next to Bakugo. Obviously, Bakugo would not recognize Deku. Deku had a huge change. Obviously, Bakugo's not really focused on Deku at the moment, so he wouldn't really care either. So pretty much what would happen is President Mike would come in the room and start to explain to everyone about the test and what they'll be doing today, and he'd start to go over the written portion of the test. As obviously, Deku would pass, not really having much problem with this. It's Deku. His intelligence was already high in canon, but now think about with the negative speed force, which enhances his intelligence. So now we'll be going over to the practical part of the test, or that's what it's called, at least, as this will be the taking down robots and getting points. As obviously Ida would still ask his usual question, and President Mike would be a little annoyed that Ida didn't let him finish. But pretty much once he would, I guess, announce the second portion of the test, obviously he'd say, there's no countdown in the real battle, let's go. As Deku would immediately, his eyes would charge up with lightning as he would run through. He'd then suddenly appear in the middle of the field, as multiple robots, like 1, 2, 3 pointers, would then be seen with their heads, like their bodies crushed and multiple metal parts falling out, like causing craters in the walls, as Deku was creating other chaos with his power. Aizawa, All Might, and Nezu were watching from afar. They had seen malice intent from Deku, but nothing they would see from a normal kid just beating up some robots. Someone who had witnessed murder and is accustomed to murder. As Deku over the time had became a fixer and as an assassin for all the League of Villains and even the Yakuza, getting more relations with Kai Chisaki and obviously Shigaraki and the other members of the organization. Now, obviously, everyone, like the pro heroes and Nezu, would be watching Deku with interest. Obviously, All Might his face had been glued into the screen. He had never met someone that fast, someone who can use lightning, or it seemed like a lightning quirk, to basically enhance their speed, or at least that's what it looked like. But as you can see, Deku would start to stack up points and over points. You'd get around, I'd say, maybe 200 points. As pretty much what happened is he would pass, or at least he would think he would pass. He had beaten so many robots. It was like, it would be a miracle, or not even a miracle. It would be some type of nightmare if he didn't pass. He had to show his father, or at least All For One, that he was strong enough to become his successor of the underworld. As Deku would then be seen, walking backwards back to the exit, or at least, just chilling and waiting until the timer goes down. But he suddenly hears a huge robot, and he would feel the ground rumbling, as he would feel the energy radiating from the robot. Since he has access to his lightning-based ability, he should be able to feel lightning around him, in a sense. As he would look around, he'd see Ida and the rest of the kids just running away, but he'd see Ochako, who was stuck under rubble. Now, Deku, seeing this, wanted to show everyone that he was strong, or at least show everyone that he was like more of a hero than everyone else here, and show them the hypocrisy. As Deku would then suddenly, his eyes would turn blue as lightning would radiate through them, as Deku would then pretty much run into circles, as a huge arc of lightning, similar to that of Zeus, would form into his hand. Deku would then run towards the robot as he would jump forward before slamming the lightning into the robot's face, as the robot would then be sent flying back. Obviously, everyone would just see that Deku just sent it flying back, but suddenly there'd be cuts, forming all over the robot's entity as it was cut into tiny pieces. Now, Deku would then crush the rubble and pick up Uraka, taking her to Recovery Girl so she can get her ankle healed from the sprain she had attained. Deku would then walk off, as nobody had any time to actually ask Deku questions on what the fuck did he just do. So pretty much after the whole entrance exam, I guess you can say, a few days later, Deku would receive his letter by none other than All Might, who's surprised and flabbergasted by his power, but stated that Deku had passed, and he is welcoming him to his My Hero Academia, I guess that's what he says, or his Hero Academia. As then Deku would kind of be excited. He would go to All For One, as him and Aoyama bumped into each other, both having the letter in hand, saying that they both passed. So All For One would be kind of proud, as now Deku would spend the weekend chilling, spending time with either like Shigaraki or Toga or Dabi, since he had grown friends with mostly everyone in the League of Villains that weren't psychopaths who only wanted to kill people. But that's kind of like the requirement to join. So after the whole weekend had ended, Deku had his suit on, his UA uniform on, as he had then left along with Aoyama. They would then head over to UA, as once a little before they would get there, Deku would then tell Aoyama to stop. Deku would then proceed to walk up to Aoyama, telling Aoyama that he can leave if he wishes to, and that he will make sure that his parents were not killed. And he was wondering if Aoyama would actually leave. So obviously Aoyama, thinking this was just like a trick, would keep staying, as Deku would know his plan had worked. He had seen that Aoyama knew, or at least thought it was a trick, which it wasn't, as he would then know that Aoyama was loyal, or at least artificially loyal in a sense. If he always had this concept, this idea of his parents being murdered, then he would stay loyal to the League and its propaganda, or its agenda. So Deku and Aoyama would walk in, as they'd separate their ways, as Deku would then bump into three individuals, this being Mirio, Tamaki, and Nejire. Deku would then question them, do you happen to know where 1A is? As Mirio would then, stretch out his hand, saying, oh, so you must be the new one. Nice to meet you. I'm Mirio. As Deku would reach out to shake his hand, as his hand would make contact with Mirio. But Mirio's confused. He had purposely used his quirk, so he would, Deku's hand would phase right through, but Deku would then say, I guess I'm just too fast for you. You vibrate almost as if you vibrate your hand, to make it intangible. I can do the same. As Deku would show up his hand as it would start to vibrate. As Deku would then say, I'm moving so fast, my hand becomes that of the particles of air. So me being on the same status of you, at least in physical body, then I'll be able to shake your hand. As Deku would then wave his hand goodbye to them, the big three, as then he would pretty much thank them for showing, giving him directions, as Deku would then pretty much go into his class. Once he would get in, he would see like Bakugo and Ida, as he would just sit down, not really caring about anyone. As Aizawa would then suddenly appear, so he would say, 8 seconds for you to be quiet. That's too long, we only have 3 years to make you a hero. You just go about a rant, until Deku would just tell Aizawa to get along with it. Aizawa would look towards Deku with his usual glare, as then he would turn back to the class, showing the gym uniforms, telling every one of them to get into these. Everyone would head over to the locker rooms, as once they would get there, Deku would start changing. Now Kirishima would be like, yo, Midoriya bro, as Midoriya would be like, Midoriya bro, where did you get that one from? As Kirishima would explain that he took his last name being Midoriya into Midoriya bro. And obviously Deku would then say, so I'm friends with you? As Kirishima would be like, well, you can be. What's wrong with that? As Deku would then kind of ponder at this. What are friends? He never truly had that many friends, or at least true friends during his childhood. So he had pretty much threw that concept into the garbage whenever he had took on the goal of becoming or getting that sentient power, being the negative speed force. So he would then tell Kirishima, I hope you can teach me more about this friendship you speak of. Obviously Kirishima would rub his head as he would kind of chuckle, as he would then say, well, no problem. As Deku would look over, as he would like glance over, he would see Mineta doing what Mineta does, as he would walk over to Mineta, as he would ask him, so what activity are you partaking in right now? As Mineta would then say, well, I'm looking at art right now. As Deku would then say, art, what do you mean? Who made the art? As Mineta would say, you don't understand, do you? Here, look. As Deku would look in, as he would look in for a second, as his eyes would cringe at this, as he would then get up, as he had been tricked. This was not art. This was something else, which I'll not be describing. Poor Deku, bro. Why, bro? He has been tricked. No, I'm just kidding. Pretty much, Deku would look over to Mineta, as he would then just walk away, bro. Broski just like, disgusting. But after this, Mineta would be like, what do you mean? I didn't do anything wrong. As pretty much what would happen is, Deku would just get on his suit pretty quick, like the gym uniform, as he would head downstairs. Once everyone else would get down, pretty much, I'm not even going to go over this part. The practical exams would go exactly the same. This time, like, Mineta would then get last, so then Aizawa would then say it was like a whole trick, a psychological trick and all. Then everyone would be all relieved, knowing that they won't get expelled on the first day. There's other things like that. But pretty much after the practical exams, the day would then be over. Deku would head back to the League of Villains, as he would finally stretch his legs. So he would change. This suit was really annoying to keep on. So he'd stretch his legs. He would jump into the bar chair, as he would then tell Kurogiri to make a strong one. As Kurogiri would then say, oh, is UA that bad? Last time I made you a strong one, you were like, you had just done your first assassination mission. So this one had to be just as bad. As Deku then say, tell me about it. As obviously after he'd drink, he'd probably do a time skip to tomorrow. Deku would get up, as he would then put on his UA uniform and head out. Now once he would get over to UA, he would then head over to his class and sit down, as All Might would run in. As he would then say, I am coming through the door like a normal person. As Deku would then say, interesting how he says this is normal. This must be some type of irony that I don't see. As Deku would then be, hear All Might go over the fact that they're going to be doing 2v2s, and, he would tell everyone to get their suits. Now Deku this time would be paired up with Todoroki. If you're wondering why is he paired up with Todoroki, isn't this kind of unfair since, Todoroki, I think he fought like Ashido and Invisible Girl. And pretty much this time I'll be having Deku and Todoroki versus Bakugo and Ida. And everyone, obviously a little bit before the matches are announced, everyone would start to get into their suits. Deku's suits, it's kind of dark. Not dark, but like, it looked like if you looked at him, it would look like he was an underground hero, not like an actual hero who had like a joyful feeling to his suit. Everyone still liked the suit. It looked really drippy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it is drippy. Manga Deku is Black Air Force Energy's reincarnation. Like, come on. And pretty much what would happen is, Deku would be teamed up with Todoroki. Deku would then see Todoroki's coldness as he recognizes something at some point he had in his own life, as Deku would then tell Todoroki, so what's the strategy? I assume you're probably just gonna make a huge iceberg and all, and you'll just end it from there, I assume, right? It does actually seem like a good idea. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. Bakugo's quirk works on nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin is pretty much his sweat. Usually people don't sweat when they're cold, right? So I'd suggest using your ice so you can't use his explosions, and then you would just have to freeze Ida's legs, and you could pretty much take the team out on your own. I don't need to fight them. It'd be too unfair if I were to fight Bakugo or Ida. As Todoroki would look behind him as he would say, so you got an ego? As Deku would then say, no. People with egos are unsure of their actual power, but I know I have power. As Todoroki would just look, kind of just scoff, as obviously All Might would then say, starts. As Todoroki would then freeze Ida's legs and make it so Bakugo can't sweat, as they were basically defenseless. Deku would then pretty much slow time down, as he would start to move so fast time seemed slow to him, as he would run up to the top floor and hit the bomb, ending it right there. After this, Bakugo would be annoyed that Deku and Todoroki pulled some tricks instead of fighting him. It'd be like XX to Tassian after he got jumped. I'm just kidding. But I swear that sound is all over TikTok, bro. I hear it on almost every sound. It'd be like how Jiraiya was when fighting Pain or something like that. But after the 2v2s, Deku and Todoroki would then be seen walking out. Deku would then take Todoroki somewhere secluded, as he would then suddenly, if you're wondering, he's basically recruiting Todoroki, as Deku would then say, what if I were to tell you if I found your brother, Toya? What would you do? As Todoroki would then say, I'd beg you to take me to him. As Deku would then say, well, I can do just that, but you have to promise me something. I can see how you fight. You don't fight like a hero. I see potential in you becoming to the other side. As Todoroki would then say, a villain? Why would I do such things? As Deku would then say, well, you can be gifted by him, by Master. Obviously, he would say Master just to fit the forte of Shigaraki. As he would then say, we can heal your scar. We can make your power only ice. I know you hate fire. As Todoroki would be really intrigued. He'd be like, oh damn, bro, what's this group, bro? You gotta send DM me this on Discord, bro. I'm definitely joining, bro. Send me the link to the server. No, I'm just kidding. But pretty much, Todoroki would then say, so what if I'm interested? As Deku would then say, oh, so you want to join? All right, follow me. As Deku would then make a portal with his speed, as him and Todoroki would run into the portal or walk in. As once they get to the other side, Todoroki would look around, as he would then say, where's Toya? I don't know what here looks like Toya. Usually Toya has like white hair. He doesn't have as much stitches like that guy over there. And he doesn't have black hair either. And he would start to look everyone, as he would start to see the comparison, as he would see none of them look like Toya. As Deku would then say, you're really gonna be kicking yourself when you realize who Toya is. As Deku would then point over to that same man who had the stitches all over his body, thus being Toya Todoroki, or aka Dabi. As Todoroki would then his face would become shocked. He had seen what his brother had turned into. The same white-haired boy had turned into that of a black-haired man with stitches cursing through his skin, as pretty much Todoroki would be taken to All For One, who would see the boy as potential right-hand man for Izuku. And Izuku not really minding this, All For One would walk over to Shoto, as he would give him, he would take one half of the quirk and add another. So it would still have his usual quirk, so he's not going to be turned into a Nomu. Pretty much what I'll be incorporating is, instead of the fire quirk he inhabited, that'll be taken out and put the ice becoming a dominant power of him becoming more powerful, or at least twice as powerful. And then Shoto would be given a high speed factor quirk. This being so the Scar can heal, and obviously anything after that, Shoto can just keep. Obviously, like any scar he has, he'll just heal it. That's what I meant. But after Shoto would be granted with this, his hair, it would turn fully white. His eyes would still be something was weird about his eyes. Instead of it being like heterochromia, his right eye would become the same color as his left eye, being gray, as he had become a sort of ice user now, as he had gotten onto his knees and swore loyalty right then and there, as he had joined the League of Villains, becoming a spy, or another spy in the League of Villains. And him being the son of Endeavor, he knows a lot of secrets. There was a lot of times in his childhood where he had gotten places where in secretive files, where at least he knows where they are due to his contacts, or at least his influence to being an Endeavor's son. As Todoroki would then be used for this purpose, as he would still be a usual member, but this was an asset. As now we'll do a time skip to the day of the USJ. So pretty much Aizawa had told everyone about what they'll be doing today, and obviously the news reporters going in would go around the same, would be relatively the same, as everyone would be going into the bus, as Deku had a plan. Deku realizing if they had attacked UA with multiple inner agents inside people, they would spread fear throughout the whole world. Think about it. If there was an attack where All Might was there, the strongest hero in Japan, all the other countries would become fearful of Japan, or at least the League of Villains to be more precise. The Yakuza could take action. This couldn't really be stopped from hitting the news. As once it would get to the USJ, Deku would then sort of run so fast he had made a doppelganger. Deku would then go onto the villain side, as he would then change his suit so he looked completely different, as Deku, his doppelganger, would have a different suit. What he's going to be doing is quite sick and sadistic, but it's going to be needed. He's going to be killing himself, or at least killing the doppelganger, to make it look like he had died. Think about it. Izuku and Dora dying, and one of their students? This really lowered the chances of UA being trusted. People would be enraged and shocked by this, as what would occur next is the bus would stop. Obviously, Deku would then go through a portal, go into the villain side, as all the small-time thugs were there. They were there and ready to fight. And obviously, the Nomus were ready. As the students would go inside, as they would be like, Kirishima would be like, oh, I didn't know we had like sparring to do against villains, as Aizawa would suddenly activate his quirk and run down. Now, Aizawa did put up a good fight, but obviously he would have been nullified by Shigaraki grabbing his, his net, not his net, I can't remember, his, I can't remember the gadget he uses to wrap his opponents up. Sort of like, I'm not even gonna try to remember this, but his capture tool in a sense. So anytime, obviously he'd erase his quirk, but Shigaraki was pretty okay at fighting hand to hand without his quirk. So he would just grab the capture gear, pull Aizawa forward before then just like kicking him or punching him. And this would lead Aizawa being the only hero, and obviously All Might being called, All Might would come along, as this is when pretty much Deku and the Nomu would come along. So once Deku and the Nomu would walk in, Deku would be in a different suit. It looked completely different. It was like red, it had a whole mask to it. It was kind of like sort of like something the Reverse Flash or the Flash wear, like with one of their headgears. Like if you looked at Deku and like seeing the Deku in his hero suit and then Deku in his villain suit, like you would see no difference, like not difference, no similarities, forgive me. So Deku would run up to All Might as he would start punching him with speed-infused punches. As his stomach, he was being ruptured, his organs were being ruptured, and specifically where he was injured. Suddenly, All Might would then be transformed as Deku would grab him by the hair, as he would then say, "Is this your hero?" His name isn't even All Might now. It's Toshinori Yagi. You see this? Pathetic person who can't even use his power right, as he would show the injury to everyone, as everyone was shocked. Their trust in heroes were lowering and dwindling by the second, as Deku would suddenly just throw All Might into the wall, as all the heroes would suddenly come, as Deku would then leave, showing his message. After the attack, obviously, by the way, I didn't go over something that did happen. So after the attack, everyone was shocked, and if you're wondering why were they all shocked, I mean, All Might wasn't really the true hero that they all known and admired, but there was someone who died, which being Zuko Midoriya, and everyone was surprised at this. Obviously, everyone who was secretly an agent for the League of Villains would know that Deku didn't die. But we'll flash back to that. Deku, who was like brave enough, or at least his doppelganger, to stand in front of, at least, alright, I'm gonna try and be specific, so I don't confuse any of you. So Deku, his doppelganger, would show up, at least playing the parts, as he would stand up in front of All Might, defending him, as Deku would then say, "Your speed is inferior, Izuku Midoriya, you're weak," as he would then form a kind of like a beam of lightning from his hand, as he would then appear in front of Deku, for then stabbing him through the heart, as he would then purposely miss his heart just a little bit, just in the general area, as he would start throwing punch after punch, and then he would start, he would rip off his hero suit, like the headgear of his hero suit, before grabbing him by the hair, with some edges of it still latched onto his skin. His Deku would show him bloody, as he would start breaking his back. Oh, that sounded sus, but he would snap his neck, and also breaking his back, and that would lead to Izuku Midoriya Izuku's doppelganger having a horrible death, with Deku's hand vibrating through his heart, killing him. After Deku had shown the message to everyone, he had realized now his final attack. Everyone was fearful. They had known that All Might wasn't a true hero, and now he was enacting his plan. All For One had done his process and started fusing, or at least going into Shigaraki, becoming like All For One. Todoroki had started training, getting ready in the 2 weeks, and so would Deku. He was training a certain technique. This technique being, if he would run so fast in a circle around the world, this world would start to shake. Deku would then use this as a tactic against the world, threatening them, saying if they didn't bow down to him, then he would destroy the whole earth and simply just use the portal to escape, or at least kill them all. Some threat like that. And he was ready to do it, and he was gonna do it at the USJ. Everyone was ready. Dabi was ready to go after Endeavor, and so would Todoroki. They were finally gonna get justice on the cruel man who had ruined their childhood, or at least that's what they thought. And Shigaraki and All For One are ready to fight All Might, who can still use One For All like that. And then, obviously, if you're wondering who is One For All's successor, now due to All Might's injuries, obviously he had found a successor. This being none other than Mirio. Honestly, he was already gonna give it to Mirio before Deku in canon, so why not give it to Mirio? So Mirio would use One For All, or at least train it, but too bad for Mirio, he would die. You can't have one, usually One For All is made for quirkless people, which is, if not, you would just die young. But pretty much what would happen is now it was the day of the USJ. Excuse me for all my tangents, but now we're going to be going to the end, at least the start of Deku's regime, as Kirigiri would prepare a portal. Deku and everyone else are ready in their suits, as Deku would even be in his hero suit. Once he would get over, and he would like be in the middle of the arena, as once he would get there, he would take off his mask as Deku would then be shown, or his face would then be revealed, as Deku would then tell everyone that he's here to take over the world. As that everyone would be shocked by this sudden betrayal, as Aoyama would suddenly start shooting beams at his fellow students, taking every one of them out. Not everyone, but most of them, as they were put off guard, so most of them just got burned. As obviously light can burn, it's not really light, but it's a form of it. And obviously Todoroki would do the same. He'd go after more of the students, the pro heroes too, obviously with the help of Dabi, but mostly they're gonna go after Endeavor. Deku would then, be approached by All Might, as Deku would then tell All Might that it was the end, and now it's time for you to say your prayers or anything like that. As Deku would then start to run around the world, as he would start to broadcast this. He had a certain device that would broadcast to every TV in all of the world, as he would tell everyone that he was running so fast around the world, he was causing the world to shake from just his power. As he would tell everyone that they were either gonna die, or they were either gonna die and Deku was gonna pick up from their remains, or they were either gonna bow down to his power. As obviously there'd be a huge meeting between government officials, at least in NATO, as everyone was wondering if they should send nukes. They could destroy the world with this. As Deku would then say, I know all NATO officials are probably meeting to nuke Japan or something like that to get rid of me, but I'm running around the world. You think I can't make doppelgangers and send them back in time or in the future? I can do that. My power is sentient, something that not even Quarks can even be superior to. The Quarks are simply an inferior version of the sentient power. As Deku would then continue to cause the world to shake from his presence alone, as soon the whole world would then concede to his power and his rule, as Deku would then take over the world with his friends, or at least his brothers at this point, and obviously Toga. And that would mark the end of this What If. Most of the heroes, obviously all the heroes who stood against Deku would be killed and slaughtered, marking the biggest slaughtering or culling of the population. But without further ado, guys, like I said, this will mark the end of What If Deku had the negative speed force. This is more or less kind of like the more dark What If, it had a more darker ending. Without further ado, guys, I hope you guys have a good day. So, without further ado, guys, this is Bleach Unbound, signing out.